you will have the chance to win those. So we'll give those away towards the end. So go ahead and light up those cameras. Let's actually see some faces. There we go. There's a couple. Oh, look how that works. There we go. Now we're not just looking at a blank screen. All right, all yours, John.
Do those get sent internationally, or what's the deal?
Oh, I think we can make that work.
Yeah.
I think Emily's on the call. I think she can make it work.
I don't even know if we're on or
not. All right, all yours, sir.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for stepping out of your day, whatever you might be doing, and tuning into this chat. What's the topic? What are we gonna get into tonight? What do you guys want to chat about? What's the big thing? What's the need?
I can speak on one. Why chiropractic still matter? Because to most of the thing that we've been told is historical facts. Why does it still matter till this day?
Why does it still matter, huh? Well, that's a great question. Why does it still matter? I guess what you're asking is what is the living chiropractic? What is the living teaching? What is the living, breathing chiropractic to you, right? Like the great ones have left the body, but have, the teaching remains, the principle remains, the art remains. And, these people were with great enthusiasm practicing into their, their last breath. They were still sharing the philosophy and putting their hands on people. What was that for? I mean, were they in hope that they were gonna somehow be that 1% or that one person that lives an extra 200 years, or like what was it? What was it that was driving them? That still drives us today, right? So I can identify what that is for me. But the important thing is, have you identified what that is for you? What that is for you? Like, what is the living essence of chiropractic? What does it mean to live chiropractically? What does it mean to see the world as BJ saw the world, or to see the world and to see people as, DD or some of the other greats, right? What was the driving force behind their actions? Why did they, for lack of a better term, why did they fight so hard to maintain the purity of chiropractic? Like, what was that thing behind them? And was it, or have we tried to make chiropractic something other than what it is? Have we tried to make chiropractic something other than what it is? And so that naturally leads you to a level like, well, what is chiropractic then? What is it? What is it if after, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, you leave the body and that's it, right? What was the motivating potential then and now? What was the motivating potential then and now? So I love this question. I love this topic because it's really, the living chiropractic, or the living teaching, or the living inquiry, or the living meditation, or the living prayer. Another way of saying that is like, why are we still contemplating existence today? Just as we were, from the beginning, or the great the great ones that had a mystical experience that brought them into a greater connection, right? Has that changed? And is chiropractic separate from that conversation? Is it separate from that topic? And did the founders and did the early pioneers and the masters of chiropractic, like, what is their centermost goal or aim that hasn't changed, that's still the living goal? And is that to, remove a misalignment at Atlas? Or is it perhaps that, an obstruction to the pure connection with innate may alter the integrity or the function and the alignment at Atlas, and that just is the structural interface that's going to get man back in touch with his source? And that's the idea of tone, right? That's the entire premise of chiropractic, is that one term, tone. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? So where do we want to go? I mean, just that alone, that question is the question. That's the question, the beginning and the end. That encompasses the beginning and the end of chiropractic. And really what the why of chiropractic from in every way.
So I know a big thing that's kind of come up for me in clinic. You obviously have spent your entire life with this stuff and have really kind of devoted a lot to it. How much chiropractic, how much tick do you find yourself getting into with patients? If people ask, do you get into it a little bit more? Or do you just generally just kind of give them kind of a general roundabout and then kick them out?
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or do I give them the 3-course meal discussion?
Yeah, exactly. I had a conversation with a colleague recently, and they were sharing this with me. And sorry, it's loud. All the Hell's Angels are out. So, so I'll share this with you. And this isn't personal. It is and it isn't. It's impersonal in that it isn't directed to the educated, because what can educated become? Educated can only, in a sense, be dissolved, or can merge. It can merge with the source of life, which we call innate. And as a result of that, something happens, right? Something happens in the energy field that naturally draws people to you, and it will bring people to you. People will find you. You won't have to search them out. But this conversation was along the lines of what you ask. And she said, you may think that students come to see you and be with you, and this can take this and turn it inward to yourself and relate it to yourself, because it's not personal. But they don't come to see you because of what you know. They come to see you because of what you radiate, right? And I think that's very important to remember, because it was no different with any master for that matter, and especially the great teachers such as BJ. I mean, go to the BJ Palmer mansion and the essence of that man, and just what he, the tone, the vibrational tone, and the force field that he was inhabiting is still there. It's still embedded in the physicality of the space, and you can feel that. And it's been my experience that that classic thing in school, it's like, well, people aren't going to ask you about your GPA, or they're not going to ask you about your Part 4 score or any of that stuff. They're not going to ask you about your technique. They're not going to ask you. So I'm telling you that they're not coming because of your ability to accurately draw up an atlas listing, and they're not coming for this. They're coming because of what you radiate and the degree to which you radiate truth, the degree to which you radiate the innate. And if that is living in full power within you, it doesn't matter what you say. It really doesn't matter what you say. You can blurt out anything, you can, right? But don't take that in a sense that it doesn't matter. But that's what BJ meant by, you can hit them in the head with a shovel and they will get well. He meant if you hit them in the head with a shovel with the full power of innate, they will get well, because that's the power of innate, not, right? So taking power away from the shovel and giving the power to the innate. And that's the difference of chiropractic, right? So not much needs to be said, or a lot can be said, but what ultimately happens and transpires is this this thing we call, whatever you want to call that, an adjustment. Another name for an adjustment is entrainment, or some sort of resonance. People locking into their natural frequency. And that's the idea of tone. That's the idea of matching tone. They're matching their tone with the tone of truth, the tone of innate. And it doesn't really matter what you say so much. And that's the beauty. That's the fun of chiropractic is the conversations may go anywhere. If that's helpful, Alex. Yeah, and there's the classic thing of meeting them where they are, right? If you're established in your own truth, or the truth of your heart, then you don't have to have any script or premeditated action or adjustment. In fact, there is no premeditated adjustment. That's the mystery of the art. But not just the art of delivering a force, but also the art of just surrendering and merging into this field that knows the way, it knows how to connect with people, and to give them what they need in accordance with where they are, right? Everybody hear me okay? Good.
Yeah, I
Cool.
think Catherine has a question.
Thanks for that nice question.
No problem. Thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
So I just heard you say, and this is something I've really been trying to dive into lately, and I don't understand it. I just heard you say that an entrainment is the same thing as an adjustment. And I've literally spent so much time trying to figure out what's different about them. So I'm curious to know, yeah. Is it
Well, they're spelled differently, right? One's an A and one's an E.
well,
I'm making
yeah,
fun of
but
your educated,
they
actually.
feel-
I'm just making fun of your educated.
all right.
What is the impediment? What is the subluxation of educated? Because it's obsessed with name, right? It's obsessed with name and identifying. So I'm just using interchangeable terms, and I'm speaking to and I'm pointing to the truer meaning of the word adjustment, right? The adjustment that isn't something that you do, but is something that, I like to say happens or it does not happen.
Mhm.
It happens via this thing, resonance. So resonance, entrainment, adjustment, I'm using them in the same way, right? That the adjustment is actually the locking in, the two becoming one, or the apparent two becoming one. That's an adjustment. Really speaking to the harmonious relationship of educated and innate, right? So using them interchangeably, but depending on the context, obviously, and within certain techniques, they might use that term. But I'm speaking, you could say philosophically, I guess, but it's not so philosophical when we have actual, verifiable things to indicate when when the system locks into a certain energy field and at a, you know. I hope that helps. Is that helpful?
It is, yeah. I mean, my educated still wants to figure it out, but I think I've just felt a difference more than anything else. Like, so I kind of assumed there was a difference, and yeah, I think I just have to dive into them more. But I don't, yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand where you're, maybe what you're describing or what you're talking about in terms of, you know, in the context and that we, you know, when we use the word entrainment in chiropractic, maybe we're relating that to a particular technique. I'm not relating that to any particular technique at all.
Mm. Maybe the like network versus BGI, like I feel like there's the ability to entrain to you, and then there's you entrain to someone else. Like there's lots of ways you can entrain, maybe.
Right? Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about this in terms of a resonance between, you can have a resonance or an entrainment or rapport. We use the same term as rapport, you know. Rapport is another term. I prefer the term rapport. You can call it rapport. You can call it like matching tone. On rapport with or matching tone. On varying degrees, right? You can have a conscious to conscious entrainment. You can have a conscious to subconscious entrainment, or you innate to innate, however you want to call it.
Interesting.
My intention is never, you know, whenever things start to feel heady in terms of the, you know, the classic Stevenson 33 principles text, my system tends to remind me very quickly that things are becoming more heady, and that's the opposite of what chiropractic is to me. So let's move on.
Thank you.
Just for those of you who came in late, we will be doing 3 giveaways for face fields, kind of like the face cloths that go on your table. Quan has them up in his picture right now. In order to do that, you must have your face video showing. But Dr. Martinez, what are some things that you do within like yourself to clear yourself out in order to be able to match tone better with the people that step into your office?
Yeah, where to go with that question, right? That's like the ground question. That's the beginning question and the end question. Again, it's funny how all these questions come back to the beginning of the whole why of chiropractic, which is, I guess, complex when it seems like the goal is very far away, and very simple when the goal is like right there. So what is I don't know where to go with this, but what is the physical reference for this non-local but local thing we call innate intelligence? What is the physical reference for that? Right? When you refer to yourself as me or I, where do you go? Like, where do you point to? You point to your head, you point to your heart, right? So there's something with the heart, and there's something with the breath. So a lot of things. What's your physical reference point for coming back to the you, the real you? And if the real you is there, then how frequently do you come back to that, right? So is your question about like a particular practice that one might have?
No, just kind of like in general from patient to patient. Just I feel like sometimes, especially as students, like we get in our own head, and then like stepping into the presence of the person on the table is difficult. If that makes sense.
Okay, so it's going to depend, right? I think the first piece is identifying and asking, being able to catch in that moment, like what is it that's coming up for you? What's difficult? Like, is it the physicality? Is it the physical component, or is it the energetic component, or the emotional component? Like, what is it that's coming up for you? So what is the beauty of this thing that we do on the table? The beauty of it is that it mirrors exactly how we orient ourselves to life, right? So it's like you want to correct something that you're doing, or something you're not seeing. It's like, where do you correct that? Like, where's the best place to correct that? It's usually somewhere, or has something to do with something that is playing out in your everyday life that is just being translated to the table. So so this comes back to, again, the beginning of like, well, what is chiropractic, and what is there still chiropractic? Is there still chiropractic without this thing that we do with other people, right? Would it still exist? Would it still be something, right?
I got a question.
Was that helpful? If you want to go deeper into that, then fire some more questions. Like, just, yeah, maybe stay on that for a minute. Not sure where you totally wanted to go with that.
I liked where you're going, like emotionally and energetically, like trying to go into that realm with your with the person on the table.
Uh-huh.
So
Well,
like,
okay, yeah. Well, this goes so many places. I try to relate this to things that our founders and things that are that the great ones have always described, and we call it that something, right? The adjustment with that something, or what is that something, and have we been able to identify what that something is? And is that something, what is it? Like, right? And you're saying, I'm going to show up to the table, I'm going to meet this person with that something. What's that something? Or let's just say, what isn't that something? Right? Maybe that's your homework tonight, is to make a list of what that something is not. What is that something, and what isn't that something? It's something that you can start to cultivate, or something to meditate on. It doesn't matter if I tell you what it is. It's something you have to discover, but I can tell you what it is not for me. And that something isn't the activity of my brain. It isn't the activity of my educated. It isn't the activity of my educated analyzing even their constitutional makeup, or even, it's really, it's a dynamic emptiness, right? It's a dynamic emptiness. So that something is emptiness, but that emptiness is dynamic, in that it is the thing that sets in motion, or directs educated as to how it should meet people and be with people. So how do you cultivate emptiness in your own life? Another way of saying that is, how do you well, for one, is innate is already full, it's already complete, or it's already empty, it's already still, it's silent. So you can only remove the impediment to it. which is having a practice that focuses on the very movement itself, and that is the movement of thought, right? So having a practice that pacifies thought, so that in the moment of that adjustment, in the moment of that meeting, there is an emptiness. There is a, there is educated is a good servant. Go ahead. We had a question over here with the yellow.
Yeah, I had a question. When you're addressing a patient on the table, can educated and innate coexist simultaneously? And then secondarily to that, how do you bring awareness to which one you're leading with?
How can you bring awareness to the one that you're leading with? You as the chiropractor bringing awareness to the one that you're leading with?
Yeah, so like in my head, like patient's laying on my table, how do I bring awareness to whether or not I'm addressing them from educated or innate?
Yeah, that's a great thing. What do we call that? We call that, discrimination or discernment, right? Being able to sense, and all you can do is ask the question, like, from where am I coming from? Like, is this coming from me, or is this coming from here? Or is it coming from here? And I can tell you, if the question arises, who is this coming from? It's coming from educated, because when you're in innate, there's nothing to say. The question doesn't arise, right? So if the question comes, that's the indicator right there. But if you can catch it, that is good. That alone will bring a shift, a change, right? But the question about educated and innate, it's like the two they're not actually separate. They're not actually separate. They co-arise.
That makes sense. So while you're, in practice or addressing the patient, is it good to balance educated versus innate once they're on the table, or like where do you see yourself while you're practicing? Like where's your headspace at?
Hopefully it's somewhere in my pocket.
I like that. That's cool.
Well, it's a thing. Have you what's his name? His name is Jeff Spencer. Have you guys heard of Jeff Spencer? He was the chiropractor for Lance Armstrong. I really liked him, but I really resonate with and it comes back to this thing we call practice, or the adjustment with that something, or the preparation for the adjustment. The preparation for the adjustment is you, right? Or as Jeff Spencer would say, do your homework and the test is easy. What is the homework? The homework is to train the stallion, to train the mule, and the mule is your educated. But if you wait till the moment you're on the table, then what shows up? So by the time you get to the table, then that stuff should tend to be more and more, as you go deeper into this practice, more and more will it be, and you will find that you're supported and that you can be in this spontaneous place of flow and focus at the same time, right? So and those two are there's this beautiful ebb and flow of flow and focus. Focus, you could say, is the role of, you could say, educated, or however you want to say it. They're interchangeable. So how do you prepare in your own life or in the context of chiropractic to be in that place of flow and focus all the time? And the answer is do your homework. Do your homework. And what is the homework? The homework is developing and having all of the component parts, going into them with a one-pointed focus, right? That's the value of study and investigating and devoting a big chunk of your day, big chunk of your morning to
meditate on and to go into the things that, innate is telling you to go into, whether it's neurology or it's metaphysics, whatever it is. And then to let it go and start to see how that stuff will start to spontaneously self-integrate. So you do your homework, right? And as like Jeff Spencer says, like, what do we do in chiropractic school when we have a test? It's like, when you get to the test, like everybody's out in the hall and they're trying to like scramble and remember like those 5 things on the test that they don't know. So I think we give attention to a lot of what we don't know. But you give right attention to the right thing, and when you show up to the table, you start to trust more and more that there is a spontaneous thing that happens that beautifully merges flow and focus at the same time, right? But how can you know that if you're still a student? If you're still a student and then you have to draw upon the experiences that you do have. Where in your life are you already in that place? A nice example of that is play. Like, where are you already doing that in your life? Some of you are like musicians or soccer players or whatever that is. Like, you're already utilizing these principles naturally. So go back. Like, how did you become, the master musician that you are, or you guys, whatever it is. And so it's the same thing. And can you skip steps? What else? Thanks for the question.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That clarified a lot, honestly.
Okay, hopefully.
I have a question.
Emerson, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to
Good.
hear your voice.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I just got this
Yeah.
like last minute, so it's
Oh, cool.
unexpected. So word on the streets is that you started with network. Is that true or not true?
Not true. No.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
then I might not have a question, but have you experienced network?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it can get pretty heady, but I feel like anything really can, and you can also, like you said, like educated and innate show up simultaneously. And I feel like you can create that spaciousness with whatever you're doing, even if it is like a very heady technique or endeavor of
Sure.
some sort.
For sure.
I'm just wondering, like, what maybe deterred you from it? Because I've had amazing experiences with both, of like being super free flowing and like just in terms of receiving an adjustment or an entrainment or whatever you want to call it. I've had really profound experiences with like your work, and then I've also had very profound experiences with both. But I'm just saying, I see the benefit also in like having kind of like a little bit more of a direction for that wave to go through, you know what I mean? And kind of it's not like the educated's directing, maybe it is a little bit, I don't know, but it's like something is kind of directing the chaos that's being, and then like just, I don't know, just with that, I've had like, oh wow, now I can feel like little subtle areas of my spine on either end and all throughout my being, really, that I didn't really notice were there before, like in the gateways, you know what I mean? And so I don't really because I do see network as very heady too. You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to find my own flow, I guess, of like, well, and really just curious what deterred you from it, because I thought you had started with it, is what people have said.
I didn't start with it, and I would not say that I was ever deterred by it.
Okay.
Yeah. What to say?
I
Trying
think
to,
there's benefit in both. I don't know. I thought that's my questions. I thought you had.
my question to you is why the separation when there doesn't need to be one?
I know. And that's what I go to too. Like I sit with that and I'm like, why am I trying to separate these things, you know? But yeah, I feel that.
I think that's a classic question or classic challenge, and that has to do with sometimes the people that pass on information about those techniques may not fully grasp the whole of chiropractic, but I can tell you that there's only the art of chiropractic. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And for that to sink in, I don't know. We have to go through whatever we have to go through, you know, to where we're no longer differentiating structural and tone. It's like that's an admission of misunderstanding. They're all different degrees and variations and qualities, different qualities of the same thing. And it always has been that, right?
Totally.
So what you're describing may be that you're starting to integrate this thing of what is really the beautiful and harmonious union of what I'm calling flow and focus, which is really the particle and the wave, which the particle is also wave-like, and the wave-like nature of chiropractic is also particle-like. So they're really one. They're not divisible, right? So all you can do is really just be true to yourself, and where do you want to take it? There's only the art of chiropractic.
Yeah.
All techniques are just to get you in the right place, and that's it. They can just get you into the territory, but once you're in the territory, you have to abandon everything, and you're left like totally naked, right? So a lot of techniques are what? They're a substitution for true connection. When there's true connection, you don't need scripts, you don't need techniques, right? And there's no hierarchies. There's no this is structure, this is tone. It's like, right? What you might call structural to me is the lightest, most etheric quality there is in the system, where someone else vice versa. So depends on how you see it. But there's these arbitrary divisions and things we have, and especially as a student. But we're in a new age, in my view, of chiropractic, and there can be a harmonious union between them, and bringing back this awareness of chiropractic is tonal in nature. It is tonal, and those who think it's structural are partially right, and those who think it's just like, you know, just the wavy, energetic stuff, they're partially right.
Well, yeah. Just to like, yeah, I don't know. Donnie is starting to introduce like impulses, you know, which can be like structural in nature, I guess. But either way, it's like, yeah, I hear you on the separation of stuff. I think it's silly to do that in my own mind. And I find myself, I find myself just trying to figure out like the differences, like Kat is saying, or like when to kind of direct the wave into a very specific point on either end of the spine.
Who directs anything?
And when to let it be like whatever the person needs to move, however the person needs to move, you know. But again, like if you empty yourself, what's that?
Who determines all that?
Not me. Yeah, not really me. So I mean, I guess it's like I'm part.
There's a predetermined way of introducing any force, if anything is premeditated, it's coming from educated. And by chiropractic definition, that is not an adjustment.
Right.
It's not what the way that I'm using in trainment. Maybe in training, they're in training to you're educated. They're in training to, perhaps the idea that you hold, but can that idea be of the tone of innate? Ultimately, it cannot. So you're on a nice path. You just keep going. Keep going.
Thank
I have a
you.
question, John.
Yeah. Nolan.
Is setting an intention, what's up, man? Is setting an intention the same as holding an idea? Or does it have similar qualities?
Sure. Holding an idea. Yeah. Well, you can say the adjustment with that something is yes. You can say it's two parts. Partial part of it is like the wave, and part of it is the particle or the still point, or you could say the intention and the other part. So talk about this a lot, like, right? To me, the essence of the chiropractic, the science of chiropractic is all about that something. The science of chiropractic is really the science of innate. That's what the science is about. The science of that something is the science of innate, or as the science of how consciousness steps down into form, right? And how do we get in touch with that? How do we consciously work with that principle? And we talk about that something. Many people will say, well, that something is, something structural, and then it becomes something non-structural, and then it becomes an idea or becomes an intention, right? So the idea or the intention, it's good, right? It's good. But who has the idea? Who has the idea? And the one that has the idea, can it know that, right?
Yeah.
Can it know that? So, or another way of saying that is like, can educated conceive of the infinite? Can educated conceive an idea or an intention of the infinite? And if it cannot, what is the closest thing to it that it may conceive?
Yeah.
Let that be your intention, is to get in touch with that.
Yeah.
To get in touch with that. I call it an image, and I do a whole class on that. That's great. Some people say holding an idea or an image of perfection. An image of perfection, right? What was the difference between BJ's adjustment to Atlas and his apprentice that delivered the same force, maybe better, but they had a very different response. BJ said, I make contact. That is the difference, is I make contact. I make contact.
So if that process of, say we're in that image of perfection, and we're there and we're clear and we've done our getting there for the morning, and we come in, and then you see X number of people, and this is my personal, what I'm experiencing now. I'm still a student, but I've been in practice for 6 months. It's like every part of me is drained every day, even if it's like 20 people that day. even if it's like 10 people that day.
Mhm.
You know, did you have an experience with that early on, / do you still now? And
Mhm.
what's that about?
Yeah, what is that about? I think it's a great place to be, and that it's like, I think that's better to have that feeling than to not have that feeling early on. Um, early on in practice, my experience of that, and when I looked at what was coming up, was that I had a unconscious wanting to change people, or wanting people to get it, wanting people to get the big idea. And how can you want for somebody what they don't want for themselves, right? So at what point do you relieve yourself of the burden of having to think that this thing is about trying to change people? That was draining me. At least it was draining me mentally and physically. Um, does that help, Nolan? Do you resonate with that a little bit?
Yeah, that is helpful.
Yeah.
I think my thought there was, is there such a thing as being completely unburdened from that? Is there such a thing as that? Because I know that's something that's worked itself away
Mhm.
gradually, like the need to evangelize
Mhm.
or save,
Yeah.
this complex is pretty much gone.
Well, it will be consistent with your depth of understanding what chiropractic is, and the deeper you go, the more you allow it to flow, and um, you will notice you'll also notice at the physical level, the mental physical level.
That's helpful.
Yeah, there's more.
Mhm.
What else about that can I say?
How much of that process was the environment that you set up for yourself where you adjusted? How much of that took away? How much of that was not? That's what comes to mind now.
Yeah.
Like
That's
adjusting
cool.
one person at a time on one table is like,
Yeah.
I think actually more expenditure.
Yeah. Well, that's things you have to identify, is like where and how are you practicing in a way that is it's because you think that that's how practice is supposed to look like because somebody told you that, or because somebody that you resonated with maybe practiced that way and it's not the best fit for you. Maybe you were told you had to see a certain number of people in a certain amount of time, and that's causing stress to your system. Maybe you have a certain ideal that you're in your system, or a certain vision that you hold that may be true, but you have to create the situation and the vehicle and update it in a way that it can actually bring forth that vision, right? And that, I can tell you, is it's a little bit of all of that. That in the beginning years of practice, it's like there's a theme, and part of that is just decongesting the system. Like, the vision is true. It wasn't like, oh man, this isn't what I was supposed to do. It is what you're supposed to do, but who's to say that you're ready and you're done and complete? Like, part of the scrubbing, for some it's like the first year, for some it's like the first 5 years. It's like scrubbing and just preparing the space, as you call it, preparing the environment, and then for this power to work through you the way that it's supposed to work through you. So how soon do you stop censoring, right?
Mhm.
The truth of you,
And the sooner you do that, the more energy you will free up and the more you will release. So you are capable of holding that's the space that you are supposed to hold. So be easy on yourself and honest and know when and how to say no. This isn't it. Not that, not that, not that. Right?
Yeah.
And your practice will, the way you look, the way your practice looks and the way you flow will not be duplicated by anyone else. And the sooner you're okay with that, the better, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot there for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Like even the people I'm seeing, it's like they're so used to needing straight attention like the whole time, you know,
Mhm.
instead of being more active in their own process. So
Right.
that's a one.
Right. What are you unconsciously and consciously saying yes to that's eating at you? Right?
Yeah.
Where you have to maybe gracefully say no or slap a bitch, whatever they say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, Nolan, this comes back to what we said. And it's the same as you don't have to necessarily correct that when you're in your office for the 4-8 hours you are, but you correct it in your daily life, and then it will translate. So somewhere in your daily life, are there space occupying things playing out unchecked? And those things are what constitute subluxation patterns. And as you become aware of those and you give them the fullness of your attention, that will shift. And the people in your practice will shift. And people will come and people will go, just based on what you did above.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm still where I am too, because that's my thing, my journey to learn to go in first, then out, right? Instead of like saying this is causing this. It's like
Right.
not that way.
Yeah.
It's not that way.
Yeah. This brings us to like the, part of, what we, students ask about, like the lifestyle. So much of our life has to be devoted to keeping the vehicle being the mind and the body, keeping it very clean and clear and empty, right? So, so that it's able to do these things. I think that, yeah, it's very valuable to return to the core of the premise as much as you can, and that, however that might mean, in your personal life and being in solitude more or whatever that is, so that you can get in touch with those things, so you can really get in touch with that. More questions? Any questions?
John, I had a question going back to Grant's question about like stepping into that certain space or clearing yourself. You mentioned the inability to connect on a physical, emotional, or spiritual level when you step up. Do you feel that that comes from an abundance of fear of self or a lacking of love for self?
The inability
Yes.
to, what did you call it? Step into
The physicality or the emotions or whatever is coming up on the table.
Is it directly related to our inability or our lack of, what did you call it? Our lack of love or our fear?
Lack of love or an abundance of fear.
Or an abundance of fear, right? Yeah. Is this a question you have, Zach?
Just recently when you said that, when you were talking to Grant, or talking to us.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Um, I'm trying to take in your question. More so, what's coming up for you? If you could relate it to something that's coming up for you.
I would say authenticity.
Okay. How about doubt? I mean, how often do we doubt? How often do we doubt? And how often, I mean, to this day, I can't lie that there are times where it's like, I wonder if this is for the masses, etc. Right? I wonder if this is for the masses. Is this really happening? Is this really a possibility? Is it really a possibility to transmit and to share or to impart the totality of the teaching, right? Through this art, through a refined touch, through the adjustment. Is it possible? Is it happening? Or is it a concept? So that might raise some doubt, right? Might raise some doubt. So how do we, yeah, I think the first piece to that is identifying where it is that we still have, where do we still have doubt? Where do we still have doubt? For some of us, it shows up on the table, and for some of us, it shows up when we're going into 7-Eleven to buy a Slurpee, and it's just like, you can't just take yourself to like take the mask off, right? It's like, hey, there's the perfect opportunity right there. So where do we still have doubt that you are that you are the chiropractor, that you are an innate chiropractor, that your actions are mediated by innate? Where do you have doubt that you are that?
Is that a question or is that?
No, it's just it's a an investigation that we all have, right? That I think we can all identify with, is this thing of doubt. And that to me is another name for subluxation. Subluxation, to be less than what you are. Hypocrisy, right? That's what hypocrisy is to be less than what you are. Subluxation is a watered down version of what you are. The state in which there's less light in expression, right? And that happens when we have doubt. Doubt that you're that. And not to blame the school, but the school does a very good job of instilling doubt in you and fear. Fear of putting your hands on people, fear that you're going to hurt somebody, fear that you don't know enough, etc. So
Thank you.
What's your process like when you wake up in the morning before you go into the clinic? What's your process like to be in that mental state to serve?
yeah, great question. I think that's, for me, it is making sure that what is the, again, like, what's the first contact when you open the eyes? Like, is there is there an empty space before the world kind of rushes onto you, right? Is there an empty space? Right? Like there's that little gap before the world comes when you wake up in the morning, if you happen to sleep, great. That little space, and that little space is kind of a glimpse of this thing we're calling, the emptiness or whatever. And for me, the morning is a beautiful time to expand that space, So I've got 2 kids, so when they're up, and the world, I'm kind of rushes in, and the house is busy, it's full, and that's great. But how well do we do when it's like, what happens when you say you have somebody coming in to see you at the clinic, and you show up to the clinic and there's like 5 people waiting for you, and you just came from a test and your head is all full. It's like, what a horrible, sick feeling, you're just like, so how do you show up empty and prepared? So in a way, you have to do the day's work before the day happens. I'll often joke, like by 8:30, it's like the day is over for me. The rest of the day is just autopilot, like it just kind of cruising. Majority of the focused work is really in the morning for me. So I like to devote at least an hour in the morning, to sit, have your morning pause, whatever you want to call that, and if there is anything that needs to be read, if there's anything that needs to be where you have to have a one-pointed focus, whether it has to do with anything pertaining to chiropractic, that's the time to do it. And then to bring that space into your day, right? To bring that space, that emptiness into your day. Does that help? So that's kind of that is the preparatory step, and we do kind of a micro version of that when people get on the table as well. It's like we prepare their system. What is another way of describing that preparation? It's like we try to entrain their system to ours being ideally that which is a semblance of the frequency or the rhythm of an 8, which is really 1. So that's the preparation. We do that in the morning. We do that prior, and then when we put our hands on people, that's kind of the idea there. And ideally, that expands into the entirety of your day. So that is right. That is something that you do in the morning, but ideally, it becomes the way that you live your life. Not the meditation in the morning, but living it from a place of meditation. But starting it in the morning, first thing when you open your eyes, before the world rushes in and tries to gobble you up, you have to nip it.
Feel that, appreciate it.
If you don't, where does it seem to arise from? It seems to arise from outside, right? But it's actually the reverse. Like, where is the world? Does the world really arise independent of you?
Right.
That is the scary monster that haunts educated. And when I say you have doubt that you are that, you have doubt that the world is an emanation of you, not the other way around. That you have to contemplate the fullness of that in silence, and you have to contemplate the fullness of that regularly through the contemplative practice that you have. Chiropractic is a contemplative practice.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Well, that will about wrap it up for us tonight. John, I want to thank you for hopping on this call with us. It's always